Ever wish you could just like download the brain of someone who's, a total project management pro?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of what we're doing today. We're tapping into all this juicy info from a project management mastermind meeting.
Yeah, think of it like a all-access pass to a room full of people who've seen it all in project management,
Yeah.
and they've lived to tell the tale.
Right. And not just live to tell a tale, but they're actually like sharing their secrets.
Exactly. And we're talking about people who've handled some seriously big projects. Like, remember that whole network upgrade Food Lion did a while back?
Food line, the grocery store.
Yep, that's the one. They completely revamped the network in all 103 of their stores.
Wait, 103 stores. That's a bit more than just rewiring your home office, huh? It's just a tad. That's exactly what these masterminds were talking about. The importance of a solid project lifecycle framework.
Okay, so break it down for me. What's the big deal with this whole life cycle thing?
It's not just about knowing the phases, right? It's about actually using that knowledge at every single step. Take the Food Line case, for example. That project took a full 3 years to finish.
3 years for a network upgrade. What went wrong?
Well, see, that's the thing about project life cycles. They really hammered this home in the meeting. The initial scope, it was way too narrow. They focused on the installation itself, but completely missed the support cycle for all that new equipment.
So something that seemed simple at first, a tech upgrade, turned into a way bigger deal because they didn't get the full picture initially. Exactly. It's like they skipped ahead a few chapters in the project management handbook. The project manager, Sadie, she ended up managing a huge team.
I bet.
Network engineers, vendors for the cabling, ongoing support, you name it.
Wow. So even if your own project seems manageable at the start,
Yeah.
mapping out those internal and external dependencies, that's crucial,
It's
right?
huge. And another thing they kept emphasizing was knowing your team, like really understanding their communication styles, because that can make or break a project.
Oh, totally. You could have a team full of superstars, but if they can't communicate, you're basically sunk before you even begin. Did they mention any like specific techniques for that?
They were really into using those DISC assessments,
Mm.
to figure out how each person prefers to communicate.
Ah, so you can tailor your approach to each team member. I like that.
It helps avoid misunderstandings and builds a much stronger team dynamic. They swore by it.
That makes a ton of sense. And speaking of communication, did they talk much about setting a good meeting cadence? Because that's something I always struggle with, especially with international teams.
Oh, big time. It was a hot topic for sure. They stressed being mindful of time zones, obviously,
Yeah.
and being sensitive to different cultures, because it's not just about avoiding scheduling conflicts, right?
Wow, tell me about it.
Different cultures have totally different ways of communicating and different expectations, too.
I once scheduled a meeting. I thought it was a totally reasonable hour. Turns out it was like 3 a.m. in Tokyo. Yeah, my international colleagues were not thrilled with my idea of a power breakfast.
That's a perfect example of why this stuff matters.
Mhm.
And it really highlights something they kept coming back to, cultural sensitivity. It's not just a box to tick.
Right.
It needs to be woven into everything you do in project management. Communication, expectations, even how you celebrate success as a team.
It's like they're saying project management isn't just about like checking things off a list, right? It's about navigating all the human stuff too.
Mhm.
Different perspectives, building a team that can actually work well together.
100%. And that leads to something that a lot of project managers struggle with,
Mm.
figuring out how to navigate those tricky power dynamics
Yeah.
and how to influence people, especially when you don't have direct authority over them.
Yeah, that's where things get like extra complicated, right?
Sure.
Because we've all been in those situations where you need someone's buy-in on something, but they don't necessarily have to listen to you, at least not officially. So how the masterminds suggest we handle that?
They were big on data, like using data to make your case instead of relying on your title.
So less because I'm the boss and more because the numbers say so.
Exactly. And that goes for anything, really, whether you're trying to secure resources or get approval for a budget change.
Did they have any like real world examples of that?
Yeah, they talked about Sadie again, the Food Lion project manager. She had to convince the higher-ups to invest in a way better network security system.
I bet that was a tough sell.
Totally. But instead of just saying, hey, this is risky, she came in with a full cost-benefit analysis, potential downtime, data breaches, damage to their reputation. She laid it all out.
Smart. Everyone understands the language of money. So it's about being more data-driven. Did they have any tips for that, even if our projects aren't as big as, revamping a whole chain of grocery stores?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They said it's all about shifting your mindset. Always look for evidence to support your ideas, even small stuff.
So instead of, I think this is a good idea.
Exactly. You say, our data shows that, and then you hit them with the specifics.
I like it. But even with all the data in the world, sometimes you just got to deliver bad news, right? Or manage expectations when stakeholders disagree.
It's inevitable. And they were adamant about transparency. Don't try to hide the bad stuff.
Honesty is the best policy.
Always. And it's not enough to just be honest. You got to be proactive about it throughout the entire project from start to finish.
Okay, so how does that work in practice?
They gave this example from the Food Line project. During the cabling phase, they found a compatibility issue. Some of the older equipment in a few stores just wouldn't work with the new system. Right. But instead of trying to downplay it or whatever, Sadie immediately told everyone involved, laid out all the options, explained the impact of each one.
That's brave. Especially when you're the one who has to deliver the bad news.
It takes guts, for sure, but it builds trust. It shows you're not afraid of a challenge, and you're committed to finding the best way forward, even when things get messy.
So we've got a solid project lifecycle, clear communication, data-driven decisions, transparency. Anything else we should add to our project management toolkit?
They were really into this idea of cloning top performers.
Cloning, as in like literally making copies of the best project managers.
Not exactly. More like figuring out what skills and strategies make them so good, and then sharing those insights with the whole team.
Oh, so it's like extracting their project management DNA.
Exactly. And the best way to do that, they said, is through post-project reviews.
Those are always helpful.
But it's not just about going through the motions, you know? It's about really digging into what went well, what could have been better, and how to use those lessons on the next project.
This reminds me of that story from the notes about the installer who messed up during the Food Lion rollout.
You mean the cabling mix-up?
Yes. Sounds like a pretty big mistake. But the project lead, LaDana, she handled it like a pro.
She did. And it's a perfect example of what these masterminds were talking about. So instead of like writing the installer up or just fixing the problem and moving on, LaDana actually did some digging.
Like an investigation.
Kinda. She looked at the installer's track record, their training, everything. And it turned out this was their first mistake in years.
Oh.
So LaDana used that information to advocate for a different approach.
Wait, so instead of getting fired, the installer got, what, more training?
Exactly. Because LaDana realized it wasn't about carelessness, it was a knowledge gap. She turned a mistake into a learning opportunity for everyone.
I love that. It's about creating a culture where it's okay to mess up sometimes as long as you learn from it.
And that's what real leadership is all about. It's not just about the project itself, it's about empowering your team.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Project life cycles, clear communication, using data, being transparent, building a supportive team. Did these masterminds have anything to say about, like, the tech side of project management? They actually had a whole discussion about ChatGPT.
Yeah, and not just, oh, ChatGPT is cool. They were talking about how project managers can actually use it practically in their work.
Now that's what I'm talking about. I've messed around with ChatGPT for, creative stuff, but I never really thought about how to use it for, like, actual project management. So what were they saying?
Well, one thing they talked about was using it to prep for stakeholder interviews.
Okay, how so?
So you can feed it information about the stakeholders, like their personality type, their goals for the project, and then ChatGPT can help you come up with really targeted questions.
Huh. So it's like having a personal assistant helping you get ready for those meetings. Did they say it actually worked?
Yeah, they seemed pretty impressed with it. But they also made it clear that you can't just, let ChatGPT run wild. You still need a human to oversee everything and make sure it's on the right track.
Right, so it's a tool, not a replacement.
Exactly.
Okay, what else? Any other ChatGPT tricks we should know about?
Oh, yeah, tons. They were using it for everything. Drafting proposals, writing onboarding materials, even just brainstorming solutions when they hit a roadblock. One project manager even said they used it to analyze a huge data set, looking for potential risks.
See, this is why I wanted to dig into this mastermind meeting. So many good ideas. Makes you wonder what other ways we could be using AI in our work. Seriously. And that's the key takeaway for me. Those masterminds, they're not afraid to experiment with new tech. And they're always looking for ways to work smarter.
It's like that growth mindset everyone's always talking about, right?
Exactly. Never stop learning, never stop adapting.
Well, I've learned a ton today. This whole deep dive into the mastermind notes has been amazing.
Me too.
We covered so much. Project life cycles, communication, using data, transparency, building a strong team, AI. It's a lot to process.
It really is. But the best part is, you don't need to be in some exclusive mastermind group to use these ideas.
That's true. We can all be a little bit more like masterminds, right? By being curious, asking questions, and always looking for ways to improve.
Absolutely. Even small changes can make a big difference over time. Couldn't agree more. So to everyone listening, think about this. How can you bring a little of that mastermind magic into your own work? Start small, experiment, and who knows, maybe we'll be featuring your brilliant project management hack in a future episode.
Love it.
Until next time, happy projecting, everyone.